This month we are going to do some food science and we are going to make butter. And let's go over some of the supplies you need because there's not a lot. First, you will need some heavy whipping cream. You also need a container with a lid. That lid's going to need to go on very tight, so make sure you test it. You need a strainer, a mesh strainer particularly, or some cheesecloth might work as well. Salt is optional at the end for a little flavor, but I don't have here another bowl for straining and a spoon to help you press that butter through the strainer. Okay, so let's prepare our experiment. We are going to open up our container, take the lid off, and we are going to fill it halfway with the heavy whipping cream. Now, you might want to take a measure of this. I'm putting 4 ounces in. I'm using a very particular type of container that measures on the side, just so you can kind of compare how much liquid you initially put in with how much of a solid you get back. Now let's start our testing. The testing is really easy, and this is the fun part. To test this experiment, all you have to do is shake. Shake that container with cream, and you're going to shake it for a long time. You might have a sibling that can help you shake the container. You can pass it off to someone. You can have a grown-up help you, but you're going to shake for around 10 to 20 minutes. Wow, that's a lot. So what I want you to do is keep shaking, but when you get to about 5 minutes past, check it out. Because what you'll notice when you're shaking is that it starts to feel different as you shake. So right here, it's now turned into whipped cream, and this is after 5 minutes of shaking. So we have whipped cream now, and you're going to keep shaking, and just note the different things that happen to your solution. So we're going to look for some changes, and this is after I've been shaking for about 15 minutes. I can see the color is different. It's a little more yellow in color, and I've noticed when I'm shaking it feels like there's something like a rock inside my container. So now let's open up that container, and our next step is to strain it. I've opened it up and I've seen that there is a big clump in there. It's gone from a liquid to a kind of fluffy solid, and now there is liquid and solid in my container. You can see on the lid there's already some butter formed. And if I tip it, you can see there's liquid, but inside there's a giant solid piece of butter. So I'm going to strain out that liquid, and then I'm going to scrape out the rest of the solid from the sides of the jar and add it to the other solid. Now it's not quite as thick or heavy as butter might be in your fridge, but that's because it's very warm right now. You've been shaking it for a very, very, very long time, and that's heated up the solution a little bit because of the motion. So what I want you to do now is take your spoon and start to press your butter into the strainer, and do it kind of gently, but what you're doing is getting the liquid out of the butter. So you're kind of removing the liquid through the strainer. You're going to push it down, and that liquid that you're making, or that liquid that is coming out, is what we call buttermilk. So it's kind of like milk, but it has a more sour taste to it. And it's used in things like pancakes or waffles or biscuits, and it gives it a really great, unique flavor. It gives it a nifty texture too. So I'm going to scrape the bottom of my strainer too, because there's probably little pieces of butter going through. We're going to try as hard as we can to get as much of this liquid out of this solid to create butter. Now, essentially what happened when we were shaking is we were warming up the heavy cream, and in the first step with the whipped cream, we were adding air to it, and it became light and fluffy, but the fat molecules in the heavy whipping cream were separating themselves from the milk molecules. So what butter is it's the fat content from the heavy whipping cream. And if you did this right from the cow, you would use raw milk, and there would be an extra step of separating the cream from the milk. But whipping cream is the easiest thing to get from the store, so that's why we use that. Now we're gonna add some salt for flavor. I'm just gonna add a dash of salt because I don't have very much butter here, but generally the rule is that for every 2 cups of cream that you use, you add a half teaspoon of sea salt. We've completed our experiment, so now we want to talk about our results. Did you make any hypotheses before we started our experiment? Did you guess how much butter would come out of it? You could measure how much butter you have now versus how much cream you initially put in. Can we also talk about how long you shook your solution for? If you shook for longer, do you think you'd get more butter? All great questions. But now it's time to either pop it in the fridge or enjoy. See you later.